On a warm autumn evening in a quiet suburban town, Emma moved into her grandmother's old house. The home was a quaint two-story structure with ivy creeping up its walls and a sprawling garden filled with roses, daisies, and overgrown hedges. It had been her grandmother's pride and joy, but since her passing, the house had been left vacant. Emma, a 27-year-old writer, thought the solitude of her grandmother's home would inspire her next novel. She unpacked her belongings, made herself a cup of tea, and sat by the living room's bay window, watching the golden leaves dance in the breeze. The house felt peaceful, old but welcoming. That night, as she lay in bed, the sound of faint footsteps woke her. Her heart skipped a beat, but she reassured herself it was the old wooden floors creaking in response to the night's cooling temperatures. She pulled the blanket up and drifted back to sleep. The next morning, Emma explored the house. In the attic, she discovered a trunk filled with her grandmother's belongings: handwritten letters, faded photographs, and an ornate music box. The music box caught her eye. It was painted with delicate flowers and had a small key for winding it. Curious, she turned the key and opened the box. A hauntingly beautiful melody filled the attic, evoking a bittersweet sense of nostalgia. As she descended the attic stairs, the melody seemed to linger, echoing faintly even after she had closed the music box. Shrugging it off as her imagination, she continued her day. Over the next few nights, Emma began to notice strange occurrences. The footsteps grew louder, and shadows seemed to flit across the corners of her vision. The most unnerving part was the music box. Even though she had left it closed in the attic, she could hear its melody faintly at odd times, while brushing her teeth, while working at her desk, even in the dead of night. One evening, as she sat in the living room editing her manuscript, she heard the unmistakable sound of the music box playing again. The sound was louder this time, as if it were coming from the room directly above her. "Enough," Emma muttered, her voice tinged with frustration. She climbed the stairs to the attic, determined to put an end to whatever strange phenomenon was unfolding. The music box was exactly where she had left it, but it was open, its melody still playing. A chill ran down her spine. "This isn't possible," she whispered, her voice trembling. She closed the box firmly, locking it, and placed it back in the trunk. As she turned to leave, the attic door slammed shut behind her with a deafening bang. Emma screamed and rushed to the door, tugging at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Panic set in, and she pounded on the door, shouting for help. Then she heard it, a soft, whispering voice, barely audible. "Emma." Her blood ran cold. The voice wasn't hers, and it certainly wasn't anyone she knew. It was raspy, almost mournful, and it seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Who's there?" she cried, backing away from the door. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, as if multiple voices were speaking at once. Shadows began to gather in the corners of the attic, coalescing into a dense, writhing darkness. Emma felt frozen in place, her breaths shallow and rapid. "Leave," one voice hissed, louder than the rest. Without thinking, Emma grabbed the music box and hurled it against the wall. The melody distorted into a sickening wail as the box shattered, and the shadows shrank back into the corners. The attic door flew open and Emma stumbled out, tears streaming down her face. She didn't look back. The next morning, Emma packed her things and left the house. She couldn't explain what had happened, nor did she want to. She later learned from an old neighbor that her grandmother had always kept the attic locked and had never allowed anyone inside. To this day, Emma refuses to speak of the house or the music box. But sometimes, when she's alone, she swears she can still hear that haunting melody faintly in the distance.